The entire city of Miami is celebrating.
For the film One Night in Miami, it was Regina's first feature directing project. She had directed TV before, but she was incredible. I just knew from the interview that her spirit and her passion for this project was so incredible. And she was a fantastic collaborator. We spent a lot of time together watching films and poring over historical photographs and creating the visual look of the film with the production designer and the costume designer. But from our initial meetings, we always talked about this being a really saturated, rich movie. The visual references that Regina and I used for One Night in Miami were pulled a lot from historical photographs. The Goat book for Muhammad Ali's boxing. We looked at street photographers like Gary Winograd and Saul Leader, and also Ali's photographers, Neil Leffer, and we looked at Eve Arnold for Malcolm X. There were so many historical photographs. It was one of the things that we loved in the film. We actually recreated quite a few. The shot of Ali in the pool, Jim Brown when he's announcing that he's leaving, Johnny Carson's show, the overhead shot at the boxing. That was not actually from that fight, but was from a year later, a fight where that overhead shot. So we had a lot of historical references that we used.
Yes, Cassius Marcellus Clay is the new heavyweight champion of the world, boys.
Yes, he is.
And I don't even have a scratch on my face.
One of the biggest challenges on One Night in Miami was the amount of time spent in the hotel room and scenes that were 10 and 15 pages long, just wall-to-wall dialogue.
Look, Alexander the Great conquered the whole world at the age of 30, and I conquered the world of boxing at 22 without sustaining so much as a scratch.
That's right. There he goes.
Regina and I, we knew we wanted to keep the movie fluid and moving, so I had this idea about using 2 jib arms. It was something I used to do 10, 15 years ago, always shoot on a jib arm, where I was operating it, not on a hothead. So in this small hotel room, we had 2 12-foot jib arms coming through every window, door, pulling doors, pulling walls, so the camera was always able, by the operator, to float and drift and move and go from character to character. So we would start by shooting a 10 or to 15 minute master. That would inform our coverage of when we went tighter, where we saw moments we could drift from one to the other. Because Regina is very much an actor's director, and we wanted to give the actors the freedom to move around that space. The approach to lighting the hotel room, we wanted it to be very warm and saturated, so we had a lot of practicals, so we could have cars pulling in, we could have a little bit of movement and life outside. We always wanted to make sure we kept that life outside. So we had a little pool effect outside, so you could see a little bit of the moving lights from people splashing in the pool, and you could see lights moving from a car pulling into the parking lot. But, you know, definitely one of the tricky things was to keep the light consistent, but also to keep it interesting, because they're moving throughout the room. These 4 6-foot-tall men are, you know, there was always one dark corner where you'd be like, no, don't go in that corner.
When is this party going down?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's on the agenda, Malcolm?
Well, I thought this would be a wonderful chance for us to reflect on what's happened tonight. Like our young brother said, there's no denying that greater forces were at work.
I chose the Alexa 65 for this project. First of all, I just fell in love with the camera when I shot The Old Guard with the Alexa 65. And what I loved so much about it was the texture and the detail and the fall off. Regina had done If Beale Street Could Talk. That was the Alexa 65, which also the same thing. You just felt like you could reach out and touch them. It was so visceral. I mean, the size, the image size is incredible. So I talked to Regina about it, and I really wanted to use the prime DNAs, those beautiful lenses. But those intimate scenes in the hotel room, the close-ups on these men, on Sam when he's sitting in the chair. One of my favorite scenes is when Jim and Malcolm are sitting opposite each other and Malcolm telling him his issues with being followed and he doesn't really know what's going to happen, and they look incredible, the detail that you see. So with the prime DNAs, I went for a cleaner look with them because I knew that we would have 4 characters stretching the edge of the 239 frame and wanted everyone, no matter where you were in frame, to be in focus and not to have to shift a person or the framing because they were on a soft edge, you know, they were on the soft corner.
I like the sound of that.
I wish I lived in America.
We have to be there for each other.
Heard everybody rich, all I gotta do is run, jump, kick, I'm a hit in your area. I done made it to America. I'm amazed at America. To America.